From my understanding,
We'll reconvene in open session, 5 o'clock, Tuesday, December 13th, 2010. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone please stand.
Question.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of agenda.
So
Any
moved.
Okay.
Second.
First and a second, please vote. Discussion?
Yeah, I got a couple items I'd like to move around, but I had one question on the old lateral, so if we could pull that until.
I had a question on item 4,
Okay.
and I'd like to move that until to the end. And then on number 7, has that been thoroughly discussed with us at the informational meeting? I still had some questions on it. Was kind of confused with it. I was wondering if we
I
could-
can't, honestly, Director, I can't recall, so if,
Great.
It was discussed.
Oh, it
as
was?
Information, but, well, we can answer any other questions you have.
You want to pull it for informational?
Well, yeah, I had some questions on it, and I'd kind of like.
Hold on, we'll talk about it.
All right, so we'll go into informational. Item number 4 after 14.
Okay. 1 second.
All right, anything else?
7's going in for informational?
Move it to the end, I think.
7 is going to action and 4 is going to informational.
Yeah, I had something, President Sanchez, at the last board meeting, I brought up some questions regarding to the multiple MWA signature pages, and I kept repeating myself, and you asked staff to bring that forward at this meeting, or was that at some date in the future? Because we'll be voting on those MWAs tonight.
well, we hadn't planned on bringing it back this meeting, but because we wanted to discuss it internally, we can bring it back next week, if you like.
Okay, but we will you're being asked to take action on those MWAs tonight and approve those?
We were, yeah. Yes, sir.
Well, so we'll go over the signature pages at a later date
Right.
for consistency.
Sure.
All right. Please vote. Going on to information governance review request. Oh, wait a minute. This is a public meeting, and at this time is time for public comment. You may address the board on items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of IID, but not an item on the agenda. Those who wish to address the board, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Mark McBroom, Calapat, President, Pearl County Farm Bureau, and member of the Water Conservation Advisory Board. I come to this meeting to speak on behalf of Al Kalin and express our appreciation to what all Al has brought to the farming community. It's unfortunate that he's been removed from the board. It's the feeling within our community that there's probably no one that I feel that is sitting on that board that has the knowledge, intellect, and wisdom about not only TMDL issues, salt and sea issues, drainage issues, and water use issues than Al. He spends a lot of his time, dedicates himself to looking through it. We have brought a lot of things forward to this board, and it's very unfortunate that we lose a man of his caliber at this time. So we just wanted to really express our appreciation for Al, and we hope that the board would recognize a man of his many, many talents and utilize him again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McBroom. Ronnie?
Thank you, President Sanchez. I'm Ronnie Leingruber, a resident of Holtville and a vice chairman of the WCAB. I think one thing that Mark failed to mention about Al is his leadership ability, and he's the chairman of our group. And I think all of you on that board have been chairmans at one time, and we at the WCAB, we don't all agree. We don't all think alike. But Al's done an excellent job of keeping that group on focus, keeping us on task, and keeping me in line and in order many times. And to lose our chairman 2 meetings before the end of his term is quite perplexed for me to reason why something like that would happen. And Al has many things that he's been working on. He's a committee member on numerous things that we've been working on drainage issues, and us in the farming community, we know the issues out there. And what Al's working on are the issues that are near and dear to our heart and keeps this irrigation district in line. So to have him removed as a member and have him removed as chairman is just going to leave that board in a place where we don't need to be at this time. And I'd sure like to, I know each board member gets the opportunity to appoint 3 people, and I'd sure like to see if there's any position, any vacancies on any of your directorships, if you could see to put Al back in there to keep that continuity going. And I'd appreciate that idea if that could be brought forward, bringing Al back on the board by one of the other 4 members. Thank you.
Ronnie, I got a question for you. Since you're the VP of the WCAB, was there any reason you guys, from what I understand in the minutes that I have, that you guys adjourned the meeting without conducting the agenda? And I know that the budget was on the agenda and the board was expecting the WCAB to review the agenda item at least. And you guys did not even discuss any of the action items or any of the items on the agenda. You just adjourned the meeting and that was it.
We just didn't know how we were going to move forward. I wasn't in a position to move up as chair. I didn't know any of the agenda, what was going on.
I'm
I wasn't
not defending Dr. Mendoza
Right.
and whatever action she took, but from what I understood, Al still was the chairman of the meeting on the 9th, that he had not been removed until the January meeting.
How could he be chairman of a meeting after it's? I thought it was that will position. I don't know. I know I wasn't in a position to move forward with a meeting. Speaking on behalf of myself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Not, we will move forward to comments from the board. Dr. Hanks?
Yeah, I just have one comment, and I've turned in a request for informational item. I'm curious about, on the TMDL issues, how we provide in-service on the regulations and compliance. I mean, are we as a group all on the same page? I know that we've discussed it in different meetings here, and I know that the supervisors know about it, but I'm wondering, but the guys that are actually out there performing the work, are they knowledgeable and understand why certain things need to be done a certain way? Because I think there's some resistance there, because for 30 years they've done it another way.
One way, yeah.
Yeah, so I would just like to make sure that these guys understand what the TMDL is all about.
Director Manville?
Yeah, two comments. I just want to thank, I saw Mr. Jay in here. Where's Ed at? Oh, there he is. He's hiding in the back.
He's in the back now.
I want to thank, Mr. Jay and Mr. Koch, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Brady, and everybody that was involved in the WEC audit on Friday. That turned out, I know Director Mendoza gave a very good speech at the end to the staff and everybody that participated in the WEC audit, that we came out of that thing with flying colors. So I want to thank anybody from IID staff that was involved in that. You guys did an outstanding job. The other thing I want to say is I did attend the Christmas party, IID employees' Christmas party at Stockman's Club Friday night, along with Director Mendoza, and it was an excellent party, and I thought everybody had a really good time, and was good at the Stockman's Club, was very friendly. And I know they played the spin the wheel differently and so I think everybody had a really good time. I didn't stay to dance, but other than that, I thought it was a very good party and enjoyed myself. And my wife had a good time too. Thank you.
I have no comments. Dr. Desert?
Yes, I'd like to recognize and thank the WCAB and the ECAC committees, boards, for everything you guys do and the consistency you bring. And I ask you to stay there so we can keep having a quorum and to move forward, and we'll get through these difficult times that we have right now. Thank you.
Director Mendoza?
Yeah, I also would like to thank the Energy Department, the management, and especially Mr. Zaragoza, Tino Zaragoza, Diana Torres, and Sammy Alcaraz. Those were three of the team leaders, and also Dan McCann. Where are you, Dan? Over there. You really stepped up to the plate. And I was concerned about the audit, but so far it looks like we're going to do okay. Not for the past self-reporting, but for what they audited us. And so it was a good early Christmas present. And that goes to the leadership of Mr. Ajayan and Dr. Cloak and the rest of you, Mr. Campbell and the rest of your staff. I know that there was a lot of stress, a lot of tension, and you guys came out okay. You guys and gals came out okay, and so I thank you for that. Also, I will be attending the Colorado River Board meeting on Wednesday. Director Menville will not be able to attend, and I will be there in his place. And I know that Director Hanks is the alternate, and he will not be attending as well, so I shall be there. And
All right.
I've got
Oh, go ahead.
something I forgot. One, on the WEC report, that's good news, and I also want to give accolades to Director Mendoza and Director Abadi, who set in on all those things, and that's been a big concern of the board, and that's great news to hear that that's moving right along. I'd also like to report. I sent an email to the maintenance group. The main canal going into Brawley, every time I go by that, now you see how that thing was growing up, it just did something to me. I went by the other day and they were working on there. If you're going into Brawley, take a look at it. They did a tremendous job on cleaning that canal. It really looks nice, the landscape. And I noticed they were doing it outside of Imperial today too.
Yeah.
And those are high visibility canals, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
okay, Director Sanchez, I would be remiss if I didn't also thank Director Abadi. He was more or less the guiding light, or the one that pushed you, the one that kicked butt to get this thing done and to push it forward. And also Mr. Ferreira, he was also instrumental, and especially Mike Abadi. This was really close and dear to his heart, and he really pushed for this audit, and he pushed for the resources that was needed to make it happen. So I know that he's not here, but he'll be very happy to know that all of you did very well.
Legal?
Yes, the board did take some action in closed session that I want to report out. There was an approval by the board of a 10-year extension of the lease for Vista Del Mar Estates property located east of 86 at Treadwell Boulevard near Salton City. A lease will be prepared. And there is a board-authorized staff to purchase a 1.25 acre tax default property on Davis Road for $1,159.
General Manager?
Yes, Mr. President, members, just back on last Friday at the Stockman's Club, we did name Tony Ruiz as the Employee of the Year, and I think that was, we actually had 8 employees that were nominated, all terrific contributions, but Tony ended up number 1 there, and I think that was a great part of the program as well. And then just one other item, as part of my 16 rank and file meetings, I got a question out of the blue from an employee who had looked up on the internet the Matrix Consulting Group, and found out that there was somebody who had the same last name as I do and asked me if that was my brother. And I just wanted to let you know I have 6 brothers. Two have passed away. None of them are named Richard. And then the board, as the board knows, received an anonymous email, I guess it was. And so it has switched from a brother to a nephew. And I don't think I have a nephew named Richard. I'm not related. I joked a couple of weeks ago about being related to Tom Brady, the quarterback. I am not. Nor am I related to Wayne Brady, the entertainer. Or I'm
He's
sure
better
there-
looking than you, way better looking.
Well, my wife pointed that out to me when we talked about this. But anyway, I just want to categorically say I'm sure he's a very nice man, whoever this Richard Brady is, but I'm not related to him. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. Move on to consent agenda.
Move to approve.
First and a second, please vote. Informational items, review request for service agreement with Spectrum Advertising.
And Mr. Kelly has this.
Yes, President Sanchez, members of the board, you have in your packet tonight an informational item on a proposed 3-year service agreement with Spectrum Advertising to continue its videotaping and podcasting of IID regular board meetings and other events over the course of the year. So what I'd like to do is just respond to any questions the board may have about this item.
Is it coming to the board for approval because the potential of a 3-year over $200,000?
I believe that the original contract goes back in time almost 4 years, and a year ago we extended it for a year with the proviso that we'd be back to the board following a complete competitive bid. We've completed that. There were 2 firms vying for the 3-year contract, and we selected the incumbent, Spectrum Advertising.
I had a couple of questions.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr.
You go ahead.
No, go ahead.
On the ECAC meetings, what was the thinking of showing those?
Yeah, we added the ECAC meetings a little over a year ago. I don't recall the rationale. At the time, we thought that it was important for not just the archival record keeping, but we intended to launch a new IID website that would have a webcasting capability. That ended up taking longer than we intended. We do have that revamped IID website in place now, and it does carry IID board meetings. It does not video stream ECAC meetings, but we're continuing to videotape those meetings, as well as the integrated water resource plan regional group, the forum, the water forum that meets once a month. We have used the same firm to videotape those meetings.
And then the other one was on the ads. It just has the appearance that's flow through. That's from the IID. I'd feel more comfortable if we paid for those ads.
That has come up. That is entirely the doing of the advertising firm, and I think it's probably offered as some sort of value-added benefit that would tend to promote viewership. But since that question's been raised, it certainly isn't intrinsic to the service that we're paying for, and we could easily go back to Spectrum and have them revisit that.
Well, one thing about it, it is transparency, the good, bad, and the uglies out there.
That's true as well.
Yeah,
Director
Mr.
Mandel?
Kelly? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, on the ECAC filming, I think that came about dealing with Coachella on a Bonnie Garcia deal, and then we had the city council people that sit on the ECAC from the Coachella service area, and I think it was very valuable to those people to show Coachella what goes on with the Energy Committee advisory meetings.
I think that is true. The missing element there is that we're not broadcasting those meetings in the Coachella Valley as we do with IID board meetings here in the Imperial Valley.
Yeah, but then we're on the website. So
We are.
anybody that wants to go into the website can pick up those ECAC meetings.
It's true.
And then, okay, well, you would, I know when Director Sanchez was asking you some questions earlier, you said that they go beyond the call of duty and some of the things that they do, like with Integrated Water Resource Plan, those filming, they're also helping with a website and other issues.
Well, I don't mean to vouch for any private firm. We've had Spectrum for several years and been very happy with the service that its principals and the people who show up and actually film the meetings have provided. So, as a matter of fact, about a year and a half ago, the public access channel that all cable systems are supposed to operate, it was being run by the Imperial County Office of Education, and because of budgetary concerns, they wanted to drop it. And they came back to this board, and we had to pay, I think, an extra $15,000 just to keep it on the air. And Spectrum, of its own accord, went to the cable system operator, got the channel moved from a fixed position higher up on the dial down to 10, and you know, that facet of this important service has been maintained.
What was the
Director
difference
Des-
in cost of, when we were with the county ed and the service channel in cost?
I believe that the proposal from the County Office of Education was that they needed $30,000 a year to keep that on the air. And it's now moved, and it's being operated by Time Warner.
Yeah.
Director Desert?
Yeah, the service is valid. Many people watch the meetings on the internet and on the television. So one of my concerns is that the ECAC is being viewed and filmed and viewed, but our water board, the other part of our business here at the IID, is not being filmed or viewed. I don't know if the audience isn't out there to participate and wants to see that, but I really think we should be fair to both committees. I'm also concerned about the budget. The past budget was $100,000 a year over a 3-year period for $300,000, and the budget that's presented tonight is a little over $130,000 a year. In tough times like we're in, everybody's doing their best. Our employees are being asked to do their best, and some are being downsized, and reduction in pay, reduction in staff, and some are even being let go. I think it's incumbent upon us, this board, that we maintain a static budget of $100,000 a year at a maximum. And if that means not filming the ECAC meetings, then that's a cut that we have to make. And we do need to keep in mind to be fair with our water board and keep that representation going there.
Yeah, I think that has come up in the past, Director Desert, that WCAB ought to be afforded the same sort of consideration and equal time. But I think the reason that you've seen this creep in the cost of the contract is that, especially over the last 12 months, and perhaps longer, we have steadily asked the firm to do more. And I think you'll recall that Spectrum made a presentation to this board in which they synced individual agenda items to the video stream, so that viewers now can go on to their website, and I believe ours,
Yes, our website.
and see just a specific item, which I think goes to your point that viewership has steadily increased. It's amazing to me the number of people who actually watch IID board meetings, and we have no hand at all in editing or we run the entire program as is.
Yeah. Now, the quality of the product and the service is great. My concerns are from the budget standpoint. We're growing it. We're continue to grow it, so we're open ourselves up for criticism there. And another thing is the soft money, the soft IID money that goes through to Spectrum, that thing goes to the Ivy Press. That needs to stop. If the IID elects to advertise or promote the service, they need to promote it and pay for it themselves.
Well,
so we can track those
I certainly
funds.
will take that up with Mr. Zimmer, that the choices that the firm makes about where it places its advertising dollars ought not be, sort of confused with the choices we would make. And
Yeah.
I can see how the two could get mixed up.
And it brings up another issue on advertising by the IID. We focus most of our efforts, if not all of our efforts, with the Ivy Press, and we have other papers available to cover the Hopeville Trib, Calexico Chronicle, El Sol, and then also our service area, electrical service area up in La Quinta, the Desert Sun. And I think we need to be doing greater efforts to spread that money out and get the message out across a wider service area.
I think that's true as well, especially broadcast and new media.
Director Sanchez might like to say that, as you mentioned, Mr. Kelly, it's amazing the amount of people that watch these meetings on television. And I think Spectrum has done an outstanding job. And we talk about transparency and keeping the public informed. And like you said, these meetings, what we say, what we do are broadcast. And sometimes I wish I wouldn't talk so much and I wouldn't say what I say. But, it is what it is. And I think they've done a really good job. And so I would recommend that you bring this back for approval at the December 21st meeting.
Certainly.
All right. There are no more questions. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Move on to water, general matters.
Mr. Ross.
Well, I have no items.
No items. Move on to, does the board have questions for Mr. Ross?
Mr. Ross, at Farm Bureau today, the question came up on the underrun. So I think Dave Bradshaw said we're 220 or somewhere in there.
I think the number we've got now is 232, 264.
Okay. And then I know the question also came up if we hadn't have put the some 30-some thousand in that we put into the Salton Sea, that we'd even be higher on the underrun.
Oh, yeah. That was around 42,000.
Yeah, but that was, some of that was 2012.
That's true.
Yes.
But the point is, I know that there's less water being used. The other question that came up is storage. I want to know and I told them that with 2 years back-to-back of underrun over 200,000, I think the IID, and we are looking at storage. I know Dr. Brady, you said there's about 6 storage issues that we're looking at. But I said I thought right after January the 1st, the district would probably get more serious about storage. And I know you even talked to us about moving water out of the area and storing it somewhere else. And, I think that everybody's concerned about the underrun and that we should take some serious consideration. I know that one time the board even talked to you about maybe water moving out of the area may look like we're transferring more water, but if we're putting water out of the area somewhere else that we can get benefit out of it later, that we really need to take a serious look at that.
Right. In fact, coincidentally, we had about a 6-hour meeting, it seemed like, today at IID with our attorneys, and I would say half that time was spent on storage options and storage proposals. We have, in fact, we're doing we're completing a very small pilot not transfer, but storage in Coachella's. Very, when I say small, I mean very small, 500 acre feet. But it's proof of concept that we can put it into their groundwater system, but that's IID water. So we are looking at an array of, and we will be ready to. Well, we'll be coming to the board in closed session because some of this is regarding negotiations that are not public information. But in January, we'll come back with a full workshop for you.
And maybe we can also have it for discussion at the WCAB board or Farm Bureau as far as a 218 vote to raise $50 or $100 million for the storage in Coachella. That's another option that should at least be discussed.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Dr. Brady, as we work on these pilot storage projects, the question came up at Farm Bureau today about the reclamation pumps along the Highline Canal, and keeping track of those and how much they've pumped and where we're at. And there seems to be some confusion with staff as to not being able to report that to the Farm Bureau when they come to a meeting.
I don't know.
I'd like us to be able to keep that all on one page to see where we're at, if we're doing storage in Coachella or storage here in Imperial Valley or storage up the river, and where the pumps are when they're operating for reclamation.
Sure. And we will get that in.
Yeah,
That's not.
I think the staff today was simply in the other meeting you were talking to. That's the only reason they didn't get answers to their questions.
Okay.
So.
That we did corral all the staff that knows all about that in that meeting. So
Yeah.
we'll get that to the Farm Bureau.
Thank you.
Yep. Mark?
If I may speak to that, Mark McBroom, Pearl County Farm Bureau. It was brought up again, and also in discussion we had today, also about I would say, the knowledge that we felt in the community early on this year that we were going to be an extensive underrun. And we're trying to put out enough ideas from our community to you on how we can enhance our water use to where we can put it on the property, get it in the ground, and minimize our underrun. And we can't wait till the 11th hour in 30 minutes to decide what we're going to do when we're looking at putting 250,000 acre feet into Met, when we have the opportunities here. Because I think some of the things been brought up at WCAB from a fellow member was about how this fallowing program has really created more water than what's on fallow ground because of the cycles on how the ground comes in and goes out. Water isn't applied the next day, it comes out on July 2nd. That there's work that's done, there's things that happen, and so therefore you're getting created water again that goes against or it doesn't get used. So there's a lot of things that the Water Conservation Board would be happy to discuss, and things that if you would really take us seriously. We'd love to help. And we'd love to be involved, not only and as well at the Farm Bureau, but we recognize the threat because this could come back to haunt us if there ever is a new QSA and they think 3.1 is way too much, and it could really impact this valley. Thank you.
Thank you.
On the report that came out today on the BlackBerry from Mr. Sadu, is there a possibility to get a hard copy of that?
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
Sometimes
Hard to read.
Sometimes my technical skills aren't that good, and my eyesight's even worse.
I'm with you on that.
All right. Moving on to energy general matters.
Yes, sir. I have one item. In 2009, the district, through its Energy for Public Benefits program on the energy efficiency, installed 279 thermostats as part of its demand response program. These thermostats were produced by White Rogers, and we purchased them from a company called Converge. There's been a recall on these particular type of thermostats. There is approximately a 1 in 90,000 chance that the batteries can leak and they can catch on fire. So we're going to go out over the next 2 weeks and pull the batteries out of the existing thermostats, and then after the first of the year, replace the thermostats. We're working with our legal department to make sure that we recover as much money from Converge But we don't want to start this program until people understand that it's the batteries, not the thermostats themselves, but we want to get them out of there even with this very slight chance of any type of a fire hazard. And it has to do with it's actually the battery that leaks, or potentially leaks. And then as it leaks, it's the battery fluid that catches on fire as part of the internal process. So we had started to go forward, and the legal made a recommendation that we're accepting. So the whole process, first getting the fire hazard done, and then the replacement should take place over the next 4 weeks.
All right. Anybody
That's
have
all
any
I have, sir.
Anybody have questions for Energy Department? All right, moving on to item number 13, major work authorization 10041 for Systems Operations Center and Modular Building.
Is this Mr. McCann?
Good evening. Dan McCann, Assistant Manager, System and Training Operations. This MWA proposes an additional modular office building at the SOC for the Distribution Operations Center. Approximately a year ago, the Distribution Operations Center was moved from the Valley Plaza to a conference room in the existing modular building there at DOC because of security concerns associated with the WEC requirements. So they were moved into a smaller conference room, and we just made do until now. Now we're wanting to bring in another building. It'll provide us a larger operations center. We have 4 to 6 people on shift there at a time, and they need the additional space. We also need some additional office space for the relay engineering group and the 4 energy compliance administrators. So that's what this project's for.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, this just emphasizes how we need to have the new admin facility. Is this a one-time expense? This modular, we buy it outright, or is it a lease purchase?
We're leasing it with the option to purchase.
So what is the total cost? $500,000?
Just under that. It's $460,000.
What's the resale value on those things after 5 or 10 years?
I don't know.
0.
I wouldn't think a whole lot.
Pay somebody to haul them off?
Yeah.
How is the
Well,
assessment?
most of the
What's the option of building? Put a permanent building?
Well, we're hoping to build another operations center at some point because the one we have is really inadequate. So we were looking at this as a stopgap measure. We're leasing it for 4 years with the option to purchase in case we can use it for some other facility. And we're hoping that in that amount of time we can come up with a permanent operations center.
And this is, we're looking at this in conjunction with the new administrative.
How is the assessment?
Jim, is that's,
Yeah, We've got the contracts completed. We have our orientation meeting is starting right after the first of the year. I think we'll have a report on our controlled facilities and stuff probably in April that we can be coordinating with Energy on. And that's, there's 3 pieces to the pie. It's the headquarters facility, the controlled facilities, which would be both energy and water, and then it would be the yard piece of it. So, but the first 2 pieces are both the controlled facility and the headquarters building, and we'll be working closely with Energy and having those orientation meetings. I think is scheduled January 10th with Energy on that.
Okay, I don't like to duplicate purchases, and we don't have to, but, so you're going to bring this back on the 21st?
That's correct.
Any other questions for the Systems Operations Center modular building?
So the majority of the purchase is the rental of the modular?
Yes, just approximately 185,000 is for the purchase of the modular or the lease with the option to buy.
And there's asphalt improvements are 86,000.
Right. There, the area that we're going to be putting the modular is all just dirt at the present time, and so we're wanting to to put the asphalt in there, and this does include moving the emergency generator that was at Valley Plaza for the distribution operations, moving it there. During the earthquake on Easter, we lost power, and luckily that line that feeds them tested okay, so they were able to resume very quickly. But we absolutely have to have that facility available in emergency.
At the location where the backup generator is that's going to be relocated, isn't there a smaller modular trailer there that's going to be moved also? Is there a smaller modular?
No, that they were at Valley Plaza, and that's where the generator came
But
from.
where they're going to be put at now over off of Dogwood, isn't there a smaller modular that's going to need to be moved out? Are there any other buildings that are going to need to be moved?
No, the size of the generator is big enough. The current modular that's there didn't have emergency power, and this generator is big enough to go ahead and supply that with emergency power also.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McCann. Moving on to item number 14, service reliability proposed improvements at the Alamorio Substation Sphere of Influence.
Yes, Mr. Escalera.
I might give you a standing ovation on this one.
President Sanchez, first of all, I want to thank the board and the general manager for allowing me to be a week late for this. We actually did have it finished last week, but there was some small details we wanted to tighten up. As you recall, 90 some odd days ago, we came in and we were discussing some of the performance, and particularly of our system during the thunderstorms that we had during the summer. This area was extremely hard hit with the storms, so we went ahead and, at the request of the board, and actually we were actually headed that way, was to look at this area and see what we could do to increase the reliability served by the Alamorio substation. Before we get ahead a little bit, this is a picture of the substation that feeds the area in question. The area in question is just north of Hopeville, east of Brawley. As you can see, it's not a very big substation. It's just really a pole-structured substation, approximately about 50, close to 60 years old. This is the area, just to give a scale of the study that we covered. The Alamorio substation services an area roughly about 13 miles in circumference. It's a huge area that it covers. It has 4 circuits. They're color-coded, as you can see. Some are relatively short, then some of them are very, very long. It's a huge area. We've tried to denote some of the major customers in that area. Some of those little black dots are the feedlots that are, we couldn't find a feedlot symbol, so we just used a black box. There's quite a few of them. In that whole area, there's about 358 meters in total, most of them all being some type of commercial with some very light residential. The presentation is a little longer than we typically did, but I wanted to make sure that the board got an appreciation of the effort that was put, not just necessarily from our distribution engineering group, but we actually had a great cooperation from the relay groups and the substation groups, and also a planning transmission. This is a picture of the high-tech equipment that now exists in Alamorio. To your right is what is known as disconnects. As you can see, those are manually operated. So when the substation goes out, we physically have to have somebody go out there and either operate them and see either close them or open them. Here's kind of the short-term in bullet form, some of the improvements that we are recommending for this area. We're recommending to replace the existing 3 reclosures with 3 new breakers and relays. The new relays will provide better response under fault conditions. In other words, there'll be a much smaller, smarter piece of equipment. They'll react quicker, but they'll also be, we're also going to install SCADA controls from dispatch, so they'll be able to operate these. So if they open, they'll be able to close them automatically. And they also have some very basic monitoring of all of the substation equipment, such as breakers, circuit loads, and voltage loading. One of the other things that we will do is we need to perform a full fuse coordination analysis There's about over 100 fuses throughout that whole area. We go in there and make sure that we have the right fuses, size, and condition. This is going to be kind of labor intensive, but it'll also be able to go back and then coordinate that with our relays and switches inside the substation. We're also, again, replacing 4 existing switches on the 34.5 transmission line with motorized SCADA. These will be able to be operated from the SOC or the DOC, which will cut down on our response time. We've identified about 139 poles in the main feed transmission and distribution branches that will need to be replaced, about 4.2 miles of distribution that will need to be upgraded, and then we're build about a little less than half a mile of new additional circuit lines. This is short term. We hope to have this within the first 6 months once we get approval. Long term, and these are critical, we want to convert the existing tab into the substation into what we refer to as an in and out configuration. Right now we're just tapped in, so if the line is a problem with the line, we lose it on end. This will actually give us the ability to feed it from both ends. In other words, if we lose the south end of the transmission line, we'll be able to feed it from the north end and vice versa. Expand the existing substation site to accommodate new breakers on the high side. We already have existing easement for the extension of the substation, so that should not be any issue. Install 2 relays protecting the transmission line. This is from Brawley Diesel in Hopeville for fault location capability, and of course replace some transmission poles. This is kind of giving another view of some of the area of influence. Not only do we have feedlots, but we also have Magnolia School, which is one of the reasons it's critical as far as we're concerned. So we wanted to make sure that it was thrown into the mix as far as being able to provide them with better service. Again, you can see the location of each circuit, and each one of those little dots represents a power pole that we've identified that needed to at least be looked at.
How far south does that go? Does it go to Worthington Road?
I believe so. Catarina, does this travel all the way to Worthington? I believe so. Yes, it does. Okay. It's a big area. I mean, there's a lot of good farmland there, but so we're spread out, and that little substation takes care of all of that.
And will it reach to the dairy there at Worthington?
Yes.
Also? Okay. Is there plans to make a loop there, or?
I think we're planning to. In fact, that 0.4 miles that you see, Director Hanks, that of additional line is actually to loop in some of the existing areas.
Which dairy in Worthington are you talking about? Shafter?
Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, Shafter Dairy.
Shafter. Yeah. I know. Director Abadi told me that not just the feedlots up there, but the dairy was always affected. I never got calls from the dairy, but I did from the.
Yeah, the dairies. It was inside the study. I remember looking at the number of. There's quite a few other rural type commercial business. This is typical existing system that we have now. These are existing gang switches which are operated manually. We will replace them so they'll be automated and operated from the DOC. This is just a little bit more detail on just the poles alone. I thought this was an important detail that I wanted to make the board aware. Even though we've identified 139 poles that are more than 50 years old, these are just critical locations along the main feeders and branches. This is not by any means all of the 50-year-old poles that are in that area. Again, we're going to improve the BO 8 circuits to provide for Magnolia feedlot. A second source we'll implement by rebuilding about 4 miles, a little over a mile of phase 2 line to phase 3, and you guys can read on as
Mr. Escalera, when we did the pole replacement, were these included in the study?
They were tested. These poles are not reject poles. They're just extremely tired. Of the 6,700 and some odd poles that we've brought up to you that we've been budgeted for, those are for what are referred to as reject poles. Those were found that we needed to replace them due to our testing. These poles are being replaced because they're typically about 40 years life of a pole that isn't maintained. In other words, we don't maintain our power poles, and that's a standard procedure in the utility. In other words, we don't go and retreat the poles or anything. These are just beyond the age of their useful life. We benefit from the fact that it's so dry here in the valley.
Well, it's interesting that these are not included in the poles that needed to be replaced because they're over 50 years old.
Because what the testing did, it was a structural test, Director Mendoza. In other words, they physically went in and drilled into the base of the pole, right at ground level, about a foot above and a foot below. And if they hit solid wood, then the pole was deemed to be structurally sound. And these are structurally sound; they're just really tired. And we forget that it's not just the pole. You know, there's other equipment on the pole, cross arms, transformers. So typically, if the pole's 50 years old, almost everything hanging off of it is 50 years old. So it's not, a lot of times the pole may be kind of marginal, but the equipment certainly needs to be looked at. And when we did the study, these are the poles that we recommended.
Mr. Escalera, the poles, are those included, the poles and the fuses, the replacement of the poles and the fuses in the $3,296,000?
Everything that we've got here, Director Desert, is included in that estimate that we have.
And what kind of time frame would it take to replace that many poles?
Well, it takes we figure that it'll take us till the end of 2011 to complete the whole project. The plan is to put all these together and present it as one large MWA. To the board with different phasing. Some of these we'll have to do, we can do all year, doesn't matter, but some of them we can't do during the summer because of the loadings. Pole replacement is one of the things that we can do year round. We can typically replace a pole about one a day. So if you go 1 times 139 that comes out to about 6 months worth of work. And then there's also substation work and so on. So we estimate that, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but just to answer your question, Director Desert, is that our tentative schedule is to bring this back to the board in early March for approval from MWA. Once we get that, we'll go ahead and get started. We've identified the funding. We've looked at some.
You said you're going to delay other projects?
We're going to reprioritize some of the projects.
Delay other projects? Which were those?
There's actually some projects that we were going to work in. I don't remember the particular projects, Director Mendoza. These were in the rural area. These are in the urban areas that will delay them for 2011. The pole replacement, we'll just take from our pole replacement budget. The projects for like the SCADA relays and such, we have. There's so many other substations that needed that it's just a matter of which one we do first. We've also gone back and looked at, we've got some salvage and surplus material in our inventories that we're going to be able to use. Since this is 34.5 is kind of a unique, kind of older type system, we've got some switches and relays that we're going to be able to reuse.
Are you reprioritizing the highest priorities?
We're gonna get this. The plan is that we're going to, again, this is just a study. We haven't really kind of meshed everything together. Is to look at it as one big project, run it through the library, and we think because of the age of the equipment and the infrastructure, it'll come up fairly high in our library. So it's going to bump some of the existing projects as we're going to reinsert this as a new project, and let's see how the chips fall.
Okay.
If I may, I'll just continue really quick. This, again, is just to give you an idea, give the board an idea of how large the area is. There's about 104 miles of overhead lines that make up the system. The one that we wanted to comment is that we've come to the board before when we replaced some of the copper overhead wire that we have, and that's the number 6 wire is what we replaced, right? Yeah, it's a number 6 wire, and that's what we've been replacing in the cities, particularly in Calexico and Brawley, which have some of the older systems. Because it becomes brittle. It's basically solid copper, and with the movement and time, it'll just become brittle. We wanted to bring this to highlight the fact that even though we have some number 8 wire and much more of it, back then, and it is copper, but it's got a steel core in it that actually makes it a little bit more durable. So we kind of lucked out. We were afraid that we were talking about replacing about 40 some odd miles of copper wire, and it looks like we're just going to be able to get by with just a little over 4 miles. This is just again highlighting the poles, the red lines, the real red dots that you see here are the actual poles that we've determined that are in critical areas in the main branches of the system that are going to be replaced. But as you can see, there's a lot of other black little dots, and every one of those little black dots represents another pole that's over 50 years old. And this is the high-level breakdown. We've got quite a number of the engineering done, but again, I want to emphasize that this is a very high-level estimate broken down in short phase and long phase, long-term cost with different phasing as how we do. Again, substation upgrades about $1 million, $1 million and 107. I'm sorry, let me back up here. Substation upgrade. Short-term, $577,000. Long-term, $495,000. Total substation estimate at this point is $1,073,000. The relays, this is done in long term, another $23,000. Pole distribution, pole replacement for both distribution and transmission, $1.4 million. The switch gears is $164,000. Distribution line rebuilds and new line, $918,000. Total estimate for now is $3,596,000. And
does the board have any questions for Mario?
What about the transformers? Are they in pretty good shape?
The cost of the pole replacement, the transformer itself in the substations, it's in fairly good shape. It's certainly large enough for the load that's there. The transformers that are in the lines will be replaced, are covered under the pole replacement, Director Hanks.
Mario, I just appreciate you moving as quickly on this as you have.
Well, those two guys back there, plus a lot of help from relays and planning, helped also Director Hanks.
Yeah, there's a lot of high-use customers in that area out there.
And it's hard to appreciate that. I recognize that I kind of blew over some of the presentation. There's a tremendous amount of engineering work that went behind this, that the engineers spent on this, and I do want to credit with them because they didn't delay any other projects they were working on, so they were able to do this on top of everything else they've been working on.
You want to introduce them to us?
Well,
I was about to say that. Introduce your team.
Well, I want to meet. One of it is Jose Montoya. He's our senior planner from distribution, and the young man standing beside him is Catarino Vargas. He's one of our young engineers. Very proud of him. We're hoping we expect great things from him.
All right.
And Mario, I know we were a little pushy on the early end of this about you trying to get this thing moved along, but everything you've shown us here, I can see why it took time to do this thing properly. And I know that's Director Hanks's area, and I appreciate you taking care of an old 50-year-old situation out there, because the country does get neglected sometimes. And that's when we get those phone calls from the guys living in the country, and we know we're out of power somewhere. So.
If there's any questions on those 50-year-old poles, I can tell you what they feel like.
Well, unfortunately, the rural areas have not received the attention they could have it. But rural people tend to be a little bit more patient and understand. But certainly, we hope to be able to maybe look at another area next coming year after we get done with this one and try to distribute the limited capital funds we have so that the whole area benefits from it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mario.
Thank you, Mr. Escalera.
Moving on to item that was moved from consent was item number 4, the work authorization for the relocation of the O lateral. Mr. Hanks?
Yeah, I just had a question, one question on it. Nothing about this part that's in here. But over the weekend, and I passed it on to Mr. Garber, Symbol, which is the mining extraction company. They're going to be requesting water and also power, which goes to the Hudson Ranch. And I didn't know whether that would have an impact on this MWA, or whether it be cost sharing, or, so I just want to throw that out there.
Okay, the reason why this project was Ismael Gomez, Engineering Services, Water Department, first of all. And this project was originated due to a requirement or a condition placed into Hudson Ranch Project 1, I guess, legitimate project, by the County of Imperial. So if this other project is actually coming in, we will have to kind of look at that. But the request is done.
It'll be on the same property.
Okay.
And water probably come down the same canal.
Okay.
So,
But
I
Hudson-
just didn't know whether, we could go ahead and approve this, but there may be an amendment to it, or,
Yeah, I mean, the problem is Hudson is asking for this right now.
okay.
That's
And
correct.
so without this, Hudson can't move forward on their plan.
I move to approve.
I had a question also.
First, second for discussion.
Discussion. Director Hanks, you requested a printout of a document I wasn't familiar with, a SAP document for another water project that's on the agenda tonight,
Yeah, that was on the Brock Reservoir.
on the consent agenda?
Yeah.
And
We've already approved that one.
I know that's been approved, but
I had a document that was sent to me that I'll be meeting with PMO to go over it.
are all these projects treated the same with the signature page and the MWA and the SAP program? They're all incorporated?
Yeah, there was questions in regards to the signature last time.
Right.
And it was mentioned by the general manager that we will actually be consistent with those, and we're working with BMO in regards to all the projects have the same format, so completely the same. So we're going to follow those.
And they're all
in future
incorporated into the computer program that's?
SAP is.
SAP?
Yes, that's correct.
And so there's a similar SAP printout for this project as there was for the other one that Director Hanks?
I'm not sure
requested?
which, printout, if you want to know like cost or,
It was on the Brock Reservoir.
okay.
They sent it to all the directors. Gloria sent it to all us December the 9th.
Oh, that one.
We got a hard copy in our
Is that
agenda
for,
packet.
which packet, which project is that for?
It's on the Brock.
That's a Brock.
That's a Brock.
Should have had a copy in your hard packet.
Yeah. I did, I looked at it. I didn't take the opportunity to discuss it because it was on the consent agenda. I missed it. So I'm trying to discuss it here. Could I get the same kind of a printout for this project on the old lateral?
I need to see what kind of printout that is, and then I'm pretty sure if it is in the system, it will be the same type of printout.
It's something about variances, or it has a
Oh,
budget?
it's the cost report, yes, sure.
Planning, yeah.
But it will be only up to the phase that we have now, which is the design phase, because construction hasn't been approved or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can get it at any time or we can get it at any time just by following the project number, which is on the page and will be on the front page of the MWA.
And
for
on the
this-
signature page?
And on the signature page,
Yeah.
exactly.
If you could send that to me.
Sure,
Thank you.
no problem.
Thank you. And please vote. The board like a 5-minute break or keep moving?
No, go.
All right.
Want a break?
Action, governance, reaffirm method of submitting agenda items for directors.
Yes, we have this item. It's on page 80 of the staff report, and this was requested by Director Menville. Actually, and attached to the staff report on page 81 and 82 are the policy number G4 that deals with agenda planning. And I think I'll let Mr.
Yeah,
Menville.
the only reason
talk
I
about it.
brought this back was because we do have this policy number G-4 on the books, but it was not being followed. So I would just like to take an action on this to reaffirm that this information from the board needs to be turned in by Tuesday at 5 o'clock in order to get it on the agenda, because there's been many a times where Gloria or Kevin or Sandra that have been working on the agenda, and I know they've had to go into the weekend sometimes because information was turned in late as Friday sometimes. And I just think that it's not fair to the people that have to put the agenda together. There should be a drop-dead date, and that drop-dead date should be followed. And if you don't make the drop-dead date, it just moves over to the next week. It's as simple as that.
Is that for staff too?
That's
It
for
should be.
everybody.
Yeah, it's a problem on both sides.
Yeah, There is a problem whenever we agreed to this policy. We were meeting twice on Tuesday, twice a month. Okay, now we're meeting 3 times, and normally this meeting would be on Tuesday, and it starts at 5 p.m., so if there's anything that comes up, by default, you're out.
You got to do it pretty quickly, yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to do it real quick.
But it's also tough when the board instructs us to have an agenda item ready for the next week. It really only gives us a day.
I don't mind working through the night. I send you emails at 2 in the
Oh,
morning.
I know.
Why not 8 a.m. or?
Okay.
Should one policy, though, be identified such as this one and emphasized as being the one to follow over another policy? I mean, all policies should be followed equally.
This is the only policy that deals with, this is part of the board's governance, and it's the only one that deals with agenda planning. I don't think we're, it's not my agenda item, but I don't think there's a specific request to change the policy. It's just a reminder that the policy is there. I don't think we're making new policy.
I'll make it work. But I may be texting her during the board meeting to get me in an agenda.
There is a problem with it. Tuesday at 5, if the board is meeting, it really doesn't leave you much of a margin for.
I got Wednesday at 5.
We can revise.
Well, I think that the secretary.
You're the guy
has-
that came up with the Tuesday at 5. I think the county has Wednesdays at 5 o'clock.
I would rather recommend that we do like noon on Wednesday.
Okay, was fine with me.
That would be a big improvement.
Do you want to revise then, governance G4? Do you want to do that today? Do you want to bring it back?
Doesn't matter, we can bring it back. I just want to make sure that the load gets put on staff. I've seen it happen. Staff doesn't want to say anything to board members sometimes, but if we have a policy here and we reaffirm it, that's the drop dead date. You don't get it in, you roll to the next week.
Okay, so we'll bring this back to you then
We'll
with
bring
that
this
change.
back for approval at the next meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
And make Wednesday by noon.
Is the driver of this the body resolution that came out? Is that the driver to bring this forward?
No,
this
has been pretty chronic.
This is a big problem.
We have a lot of, this is a very busy board, a very busy staff. We've got a lot of items. You've seen mammoth, well, I think Director Desert, you saw a mammoth one last time. So it's really just the staff time to make sure that the staff reports are correct, that we have the right backup, all that. And by noon on Wednesday gives staff another full day of being able to prepare things.
It is overloading staff.
The agenda.
Usually when I take an agenda item, I just push it under the door. I don't go in there because it's the week from hell. Yeah.
Is there a policy for an emergency if a true emergency arises? I mean,
Under the Brown Act, the agenda has to be posted 72 hours beforehand.
sure, but we're just talking about this policy here. I mean, what
We
if
had
something
some
comes-
this time that came in late, and this was from staff.
So you could go a little further if there was an emergency, as long as you complied with the Brown Act. There is some Brown Act emergencies, but they're pretty tough to. Generally, 72-hour notice is what's going to be required at a minimum.
Why? But through Thursday and Friday, if something comes up.
Sure. You don't have a specific policy if you have something in mind.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Garber, but if you have a true emergency, you can add it at the meeting stating that you only receive the information within the time frame, or actually in less.
Yeah, the
be
emergency
discussed with
item
no action.
provisions in the Brown Act are limited and somewhat difficult. I can come back in the next meeting and give you that information. It's not particularly helpful. It
But
can be done.
it's got to
but
be
a pain.
tough, because I think our last agenda packet was about 300 pages. I know, and you loaded us up with the brief. I think I counted pages, and there's somewhere close to 900 pages to read that week.
Thick.
Dr. Brady, what was the reason for the supplemental agenda to be brought today? Is it an emergency?
No, Gloria?
We just failed to put it on the regular agenda. So what works for the board should work for staff, right?
Yes, it should, and we're all working together.
So agreed.
Well, I would suggest that we try to make it work out.
Well,
Try
then, we're going to bring
try
this
help
back
staff.
for the next meeting for the board. Wednesday at noon seems to be the cutoff point to modify Governance G4, is that correct?
Yeah, bring it back, yeah.
Okay. Moving on to item,
Director Sanchez, we have also number 7 under consent.
yeah, I was going to put that at the end. Oh, no, I think that was under action.
No, it's under consent.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, but it's an,
but, yeah, but it's going to be an action item. I mean, where it's not just informational.
Oh, okay.
Item 16, proposed amendment to IID strategic plan regarding export of renewable energy.
yes, thank you, Mr. President, members, and this is a great example of putting an item on just in time to comply with getting this on. As you recall, Supervisor Wyatt gave a presentation last week, which highlighted the importance of renewable energy development, and that subsequent discussion by the board expressed a desire to put this as a specific strategic plan element. In the time between that meeting and this meeting, we didn't get too much work done on it, but I wanted to memorialize it, that this indeed, and it's under action, that the board reaffirmed to staff that we get this. It'll probably take a couple of weeks, but what it'll be a strategic plan element along with, deliverables, the measurements, who's responsible for it, just as we do on the current.
And this will be
strategic
done
plan.
in-house? You won't?
Oh, this is, yes, ma'am.
Can you remind us again of what the difference between this and the cluster study is?
Well, the cluster study is specifically for interconnections by by energy developers. The strategic plan is how we do it first of all identifies a priority of the board and has targeted activities which support that. But it's not a part of the operational cluster study process. And having said all that is probably why I need 2 weeks to come back with something that makes sense. It's incorporated into our strategic plan format.
Okay.
And I think the modifications, there was some options that were brought by Dr. Cope. I think you kind of weeded through that, so I think that could kind of just feed into the strategic plan.
Sure.
All right, move it. Oh, you have a question?
I might add, I know Mr. Horn from the county is here in the audience, and I might add, I know Mr. Cope gave a very good presentation on the transmission, and Mr. Wyatt did also. And I might add, some of those were up at the groundbreaking at Boulevard were on Thursday the 9th. I know Director Mendoza was up there, and Dr. Brady was up there, and myself. And another thing I might say is, Governor Schwarzenegger gave a very good talk, but his cousin outdid him, but Mr. Wyatt outdid everybody.
He did.
So I have to say, Gary was the last guy to talk, and he winged it, no notes, no nothing. And he gave quite a talk, but they talked about the rich side of the mountain being over on the west side and the poor side of the mountain being over on this side. But as I say, we have a gold mine here, so we're going to get the renewable resources going. So I think this strategic deal here is going to be good for the valley.
Absolutely.
I know people think I'm impatient on this deal, but, this came up during our study with the prudence review. And that was about 4 years ago. We've been pushing this thing forward, and that day's here now. We got to have it ready. We got to have things happening, or that window's going to close on us, and I'll leave it there.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item number 17, water, approval of amendment. But, number 16, you're bringing it back, right?
No, that's an action.
The action, just affirming that, and instructing staff to bring it back.
Can I get a motion?
So move.
Second.
First and second, please vote. Item 17, water, approval of amendment to major work authorization 108 regarding work at Imperial Dam facilities.
Mr. Cox.
Good evening. My name's Doug Cox. I think most of you know me. What do you want to know?
What do you?
We want to finish this project.
How is it out there in Gilligan's Island?
Hey, it's great. I recommend it to anybody. I've got some
Are you up
pictures
there
here.
now?
I'm sorry?
Are you up there now? Did you move?
We don't want to talk about that.
Oh.
Not yet. I'm going to wait until the first of the year.
Has your wife
Holidays,
seen
that's a mess.
Has your wife okayed the modular? Has she seen
Oh,
it?
yeah. Oh, yeah. We stayed in it Saturday night. We had our
And you're
Christmas
still,
party over at
and
the
you're
dam.
still married?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
We heard you have to use coal for heat.
No,
Every
no,
hour
no,
you have
no,
to put
no,
coal
no.
in there.
It's got heat pump and everything. It's in good shape. Anyway, I got some pictures if I want to pass them out.
Sure.
Anybody have any questions for the Imperial work at the dam? If not, can I get a motion?
Move for approval.
We got a
Second.
first and a second. Discussion? Please vote. Thank you, Mr. Cox.
Thank you.
Moving on to, as we pass out the pictures, moving on to finance, financial report through October 31st, 2010.
That's good. I've seen that.
You got two, right?
What's the next
No,
item?
they're all different.
Oh, we haven't done the one from
What's
There's a whole bunch of
item?
them.
I'm on page 123 of the board package. As I previously stated in other monthly reports, the sales for Energy Department and the Water Department have been below budget. If you look at page 123, you'll see the megawatt hours sold is down about 6%, what we're forecasting to be. Even though sales have been down, which translates to revenue being down, our costs have dropped even faster than our sales. So when we prepared the 2010 budget, we're expecting to have debt service coverage ratio of 3.14 times, and right now we're forecasting to be at 4.91 times. And then on the Water Department, over on page 125, it's a similar situation. Sales are down. Costs are down. What's helping us on our debt service coverage on the water is we didn't issue bonds for the Water System Conservation Project. That's been delayed. So when the budget was prepared, we were forecasting a debt service coverage ratio or times 2.29 times. Right now we're forecasting 2.77 times. And that's the extent of my presentation this month for the financials.
What's the top of that ratio? What's the maximum you want to get to before you're redlining from an accounting standpoint?
Well, the higher the better. So there's no maximum. But generally speaking, the bond covenants, the minimum that you have to have sometimes is as low as 1 or 1.1 or 1.25 or 1.5. So when you're getting into 2, 3, and 4 times coverage, that means you're in a pretty strong financial position. You're generating enough money to cover your debt service, more than enough to cover your debt service.
Wait, so you're saying that we have lower sales, but our debt coverage is getting better?
Yes. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
I move for approval of the receipts. Do we accept them?
First, or a second?
Second?
Second for discussion. As of compared to December or November of 2010 compared to November of 2009, on the forecast of sales on energy, how much are we off by?
I don't know. I'll have to get that information for you.
Okay. Any other questions? Please vote. All right, moving on to item number, how about we go to item number, can we go to item 7 first?
Yes.
Before we go into the a budget. Item number 7 is 2450, the cost allocation on the consent item, which was Approval of 2450 recost allocation of joint expenses. Victor Hanks.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. Under the scope, where it says the chief financial officer will work with Energy and Water Department management during the annual budget process to determine the appropriate departmental overhead allocation rates for the following year. Are you going to establish some type of percent, or how does that, is that going to just be arbitrary, or?
No, it's a calculation that we make every year, but what we're proposing to do, different than the standard calculation, occasionally the Energy Department or the Water Department will have a very large capital project, and if we do our standard overhead allocation, it ends up allocating a disproportionate share of those costs to one project. And the example this year would be the El Centro Unit 3 repowering. So what we're proposing to do, if we make changes from that standard allocation to highlight those changes in the MWA, so that when we bring the information forward to the board for approval, we'll note that we have made a change from our standard practice and ask the board's approval for that change.
Okay, and dropping down right below that, it says rates for capital projects for which is determined that the standard allocation overhead would place a proportionate burden on the project. Now that would come forward in an MWA, but will it have some type of variance justification? Because I can see where that could open up a can of worms.
Well, it will have an explanation, but this is a standard practice from other utilities I've worked at, where there have been large projects that kind of distort things, that you do need to make an adjustment, or those large projects will end up absorbing all of the overhead, which if that's the way it should be, then there won't be any adjustment. But if we look at the situation and think that that project is being hit or being burdened by it, then we will propose an adjustment for the board's action.
So basically, we'll eat that cost. The IID eats that cost.
No, the IID doesn't eat the cost. It's, all the costs will be allocated, just a matter of which projects get the allocation.
There's some language change in here that struck out. Is that struck out for a specific reason on the scope? Or are we looking at adopting a new policy here that has a different language into it?
Yes, it is a revised policy, and what we struck out is what was there originally.
And the problem with that?
Well, as I mentioned, the Finance and Accounting Department is not going to be responsible for determining the non-standard allocations. That's going to be brought forward to the board for their action. So I think that's the distinction that we're trying to make. If it's a standard allocation, then there's not going to be any board action. If there's not a non-standard allocation, then there will be board action.
Okay.
Was there a request to change this policy, or where did that energy come from?
We worked with internal audit, Energy Department, and the Water Department to kind of resolve everyone's concerns or ideas, and this is what we came up with that I think satisfies all those departments, including finance.
On, Tony, I got lost in your numbering there under policy, and then it has a charge directly to water and energy and so forth. Is there any vehicle or provision where the two departments could challenge any of this if they feel like general services is just overbuilding and getting too large? You know, I know in a lot of agencies, not necessarily utilities, but a lot of agencies, they develop an indirect cost, and it's a % of the budget. and they pay that to General Services, and they provide that service. And what I'm saying is, do they get to pick and choose the services that they need? Or if they feel like there's a service being provided and they really don't need it, but yet they're being charged for it, what's their recourse? You guys turn the lights out and put the gloves on, or what do you do?
The process
Pretty
is
much.
that the Water and Energy Department, along with the Finance Department, reviews centralized services budget. So they are given an opportunity to question what is in the budget before it comes to board for board action. And so that's one place they get an opportunity. And then every 3 or 4 years, I think the plan is to update the allocation between water and energy of those costs. And I just haven't had time to look at that since I've been here. I expect within the next year or two, I will be reviewing an updated study and bringing that forward.
Yeah, I would recommend that you go back and look at like the last 6 years and see where the growth has been in the expenditures. I think you'll find that proportionately it's, in centralized services, it's exceeds percentage-wise drastically what the other two departments are.
Well, I know for the last 3 years, I think, on the budget for centralized services, we've been pretty much flat. And I haven't gone back prior to that, but I know for the last 3 years it's...
Greg, I think Mr. Campbell has some comments. Go ahead, John.
Are you finished?
That's all.
Yeah, I'll move for board approval of the revised policy number 2450.
Second.
There's first and a second. More discussion? Please vote. All right, moving on to item number 19, consideration for resolution approving 2011 budget and staffing plan.
What I'll...
I would make a recommendation. Did we approve the supplemental agenda?
Not yet. It was going to be after, or you can do it now, which
I'd recommend we do it before. That has to do with the upgrade of the critical business system.
Yeah.
That would be Frank Hernandez. Again, he presented information at the last board meeting.
Shouldn't this have been on the consent agenda, or?
It was supposed to have been on the consent agenda, and it was...
There been any changes, significant changes from what was presented to us?
The only change was making sure that we had the signature page correct.
Okay.
I move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please vote. All right.
Okay, now we're on to the budget.
Budget.
Budget item. Mr. Broking.
I have a presentation.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
We're going to take a 5-minute break. I think we'll have to go to the restroom. It's going to be really quick. Can we, instead of going to the budget tonight, can we schedule a workshop for next week? A standalone workshop for the budget? The 22nd.
Wednesday, the 22nd.
That's all right with the board?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Please vote.
5 o'clock workshop?
All right, thank you, and we'll see you next Tuesday.